Okay, this week's edition of Explosive Chemistry with Scott, we're studying Mars. And so today we're going to do some interesting things with CO2 gas. On Mars, CO2 gas is one of the most prevalent gases in the atmosphere. It actually occupies more than 95% of the atmosphere of Mars. And so it's kind of an important thing. It's also really important because if we would like to colonize Mars, like Elon Musk would like to do, we need to figure out how to use carbon dioxide, CO2 gas, to our advantage. If you separate carbon dioxide, you get carbon and you get O2, or oxygen. And it's the air that we breathe on Earth, so we need it. So we need to find a way to be able to use it. So what Elon Musk and NASA have been able to do is make machines that will separate the CO2 gas so that we can use the oxygen. There was a scientist a few years back that was able to use a process that was able to take carbon dioxide and separate it. His name was Sabatier, I think is his name. French, so I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But he was able to separate carbon dioxide so that oxygen was the byproduct of it. One thing that's so cool about carbon dioxide is that on Mars, it is actually frozen out of the atmosphere and is laid down on the North Pole and the South Pole of Mars in a layer of what seems to be very thick frost or even snow. So you have CO2 snow being laid down on the North and South Poles. Then what they've also observed is that when the sun hits that frost during certain times of the year, it will actually create geysers of CO2 gas that spew into the atmosphere. And super fascinating, what should be a really, really fascinating event to see. So if we were standing on the surface of Mars, you would see these geysers shooting up into the atmosphere. What I decided to do this week is to try to recreate one of those geysers using frozen CO2 gas. And if you haven't figured it out already, frozen CO2 gas is actually just dry ice. And so let's see what we can do with dry ice.
So before we get into anything that you can do at home, I need to do a careful explanation of the dangers of dry ice. And you can see that immediately when you put dry ice into warm water, you're going to get lots of gases that come off of it. That's actually CO2 gas. And so once you try to contain that, you're going to get some pretty dangerous environments. What's going on here is that the ice itself is going straight from a solid to a gas. And with lots of energy and lots of gases, you're going to get just something like this. Yikes. Oh, goodness. So you got to be careful. And we might have to see that again. That water bottle is going to explode. If it had a little bit better seal, it would explode. Anyway, let's just look at this. So what I tried to do is recreate what a geyser would look like. Of course, you got to get some yellow or some red dye in water so that it looks like the Martian soil. But any sort of sturdy container would work. You can see immediately, put that dry ice in there, you're going to get spewing gases. The gas actually isn't really hot. It's not like steam. It's just gas. So that's why I can touch it right there. I put a hole in the top of that lid to show what it would look like if it had a small opening and gases trying to get out like that. Doesn't that look cool? Oh, man. And then look at that. Those gases, those tendrils of gas coming out of the container. Love that sort of stuff. It's just a cool product. Another experiment, this one's kind of fun, is just get some warm water and throw in some dry ice. But before you do it, put a little bit of dish soap in there, and you're going to get bubble, right? Dry ice is kind of bubbling gases, right? And so just throw in some dry ice to some soapy water. Dish soap acts the best. and you just start to get this. It's like a mountain of bubbling captured CO2 gas. So this is really fun. You could do this for hours and hours and hours. In fact, I think we did. It was like 2 hours of our day just watching, playing with the bubbles that came off of just CO2, dry ice. So I was trying to capture one of those bubbles there, and if you're careful, you can. You grab one and then hold it. As long as you have a glove, a cloth glove like that, you can actually hold on to some of that. So also, from time to time, you'll get openings in this, and the dry ice, the CO2 gas will actually escape. So just try to cover it with that glove, and you'll get your bubbles again. So it's super satisfying. You could just watch it all day long. So then what we decided to do is to try it a little bit differently. We added a little bit more water, and instead of putting big chunks of dry ice, we decided to put smaller chunks of dry ice, and lots of them. Lots of little tiny chunks of dry ice. And that created lots of bubbles instead of just like one big, source of gas. And you get this. Doesn't it remind you of elephant toothpaste? Elephant toothpaste is something we're going to have to do when you all get back to the school. But this is such a fun, cool capturing of the CO2 gas in these little things. And then look at this. You get that one big bubble that was created. That's super fun. Super satisfying. Those satisfying videos? They should just do a whole bunch of dry ice and bubbles. Because you just get a super satisfying thing. Anyway, another experiment you can do at home that is also really, really fun is change your liquid to alcohol. This is 90% isopropyl alcohol. And the reason for using alcohol is because when you put dry ice in alcohol, you really, really lower the temperature of the water, because isopropyl alcohol doesn't freeze at a high temperature. It freezes at a really, really, really low temperature. And so what you end up getting is this really, really interesting freezing type temperatures. So then what you can do is you can place an item inside of that freezing temperature, and it will freeze that item. So I just put a grape in there, but I've seen little jellies, jelly bears or something like that, and you just leave it in there for a few minutes, and it doesn't take very long, but it'll make that really, really hard. It'll freeze it. In fact, it got so cold that it froze my container to the table. You could see there, but man, it's really cool. It's cool to change a liquid item into a frozen item just with dry ice. This is what happens also with ice cream. But anyway, we tried different items. We tried a banana. Banana was really fun.
Okay, so this is one of those things that you can do at home, and I encourage you to do it. You could see in those videos that Charlie and Isaac were so excited about the bubbles and about all of the gases that were coming into the bubbles. And so try it at home. It's a lot of fun. Maybe some of you have already done these at home, but they're super fun to do again with materials that you have around the house. The only thing you really need is to go and get some dry ice. So we'll see you next week.